Herzlich willkommen zum Livestream mit der Connacht Distillery. Lange Zeit war es hier ruhig, ein bisschen Sommerpause, jetzt geht's wieder los und ich freue mich sehr, dass der David von Connacht heute Abend bei mir ist und wir euch ein paar Whiskys vorstellen können und die Distillery. So, hello David, it's great to have you on the stream tonight. Thank you very much for taking your time.
Hi Mareike. Good to see you.
Yeah, I was just saying that I did some summer break with the live streams for the last 2 or 3 weeks. So we are back now and I'm very happy that you are with me on the stream tonight.
Delighted to be here.
Yeah, so maybe you can talk a bit about who you are and about the Connacht Distillery.
Okay, just so that I understand the audience, do you want me to stop at any point in time to translate? Or are we okay to go in English?
We go ahead in English, but the people can ask questions in German and then I can translate. So we do it very interactive. So we have already the first viewers and the first ones here saying hello. You can see the comments now. Hello, everybody.
Yeah. I see Thomas and Tina there. They're great supporters of us. Yeah, on social media and that, so welcome. And I see we have some of our crew here also. So I think is that Gronya or Ella that might be on also, keeping an eye on me?
Maybe. Maybe there are some people watching from your distillery if you're doing everything right. So Ella is here, so
yeah,
Ella's watching.
So yeah, she's like big sister. So for everybody, I'm David. I am a founder of the Connacht Whiskey Company. I suppose, so two sides to it. Who am I? So I'm a manufacturing engineer. So I'm an engineer at my qualification. And ultimately, how did I become interested in whiskey? I suppose that's a long journey. It started when I was in university in the very early 90s. And it's a bit like everybody in university. We explored lots of different things, and our parents weren't around to keep an eye on us. So we generated some bad habits and maybe some good habits. So I suppose for me, my whiskey journey started then. Over the course of my career, I've worked across the world, from Asia and Taiwan to the US and to Poland, Croatia, mainland Europe, here, there, and everywhere. And along that time, I suppose when you're away from home, you kind of explore things. So I've had the opportunity to try more and more whiskies and more different styles. And I suppose that I've always kind of come back to Irish whiskey. I love Bushmills single malts. I find them to be outstanding quality. I love the Irish distillers' pot stills. I mean, everybody acknowledges that Redbreast is one of the best whiskies, if not the best whiskey in the world. So Irish has always been, obviously I'm an Irish man and Irish things are important to me, but Irish whiskey is also something where I've gravitated to. And I suppose the journey moved on a little bit, where you try and do a little bit of home blending. Some of it is good, some of it is not so good.
Yeah.
But what you understand is, you don't really mix a single malt with a pot still. It doesn't go particularly well. But you can mix a single malt with maybe have a sherry finish with something that might have a slightly different finish. And then you get to see that, the flavor changes, and you get to understand that, there's a lot more to this than just, whiskey is whiskey, but what we do is we create flavor. So I got the opportunity in 2013, where conversations were going on between myself and my friends, and John Teeling had just sold Cooley to Beam Suntory at that time. So really there were no independent Irish distilleries in the country. There were just the big four distilleries that are the big four multinationals that were really in Ireland. Then along came Dingle, and that was, I think, maybe about 2014 or so. The Shed came along, and And some of the smaller guys started to become, get their businesses up and running and start to develop their plans. So I had the opportunity to be able to kind of do that with a cousin of mine who is based in Philadelphia in Pennsylvania. So the journey really started for us around 2013. And in that time, we, there's a lot of obstacles to overcome, Mareike, as you know. It's where is your distillery going to be based? Where are you going to get the money to make the whole thing happen?
Money is a big thing.
Money. The money. If there's no money, it doesn't happen, right?
Yeah.
So ultimately, I live in the west of Ireland, and I lived in the region of Connacht. And within the region of Connacht, there are 5 counties. There's Galway, Mayo, Sligo, Leitrim, and Roscommon. So I live in Mayo. I actually live about 40 minutes from the distillery. But in order to try and find a location that would be suitable for us, it took me 14 months. I called the company the Connacht Whiskey Company, because if we built the distillery in Galway, I couldn't call it the Mayo Whiskey Company. And if I built the distillery in Mayo, I couldn't call it the Galway Whiskey Company.
Yeah.
So we called it the Connacht Whiskey Company to give us a little bit of flexibility. So the distillery that we're in is right up on the northern coast of Connacht. And what I think is really, it's an area where it would have had a strong distilling heritage, but that's been lost for over 150 years. And the premises that we're in right now is a former bakery. So there's almost something really, really cool where a baker uses grain to make bread and a distiller uses grain to make whiskey.
Yeah.
So there's almost like a kind of like a full circle thing going on with this building. So this building has a new life. So I think, that the story for me is such that I'm very close to home. I have traveled the world, but I've always had great affection and love for my homeland. And this is something where there's a real legacy project. There's something here that will last for a long, long time. And it gives us an ability to be able to go and tell the world about kind of the cool things that we're trying to do and have people enjoy the products that we make. We're not a big distillery, as you know, you've been here.
Yeah.
So basically we make about 500 barrels of single malt whiskey every year. So it's not like a Jameson, it's not like a Bushmills. It's very, very small. It's very, very boutique.
Cool. And
it's cool.
See what you are producing, and when you do a tour there, you're really hands-on the tour, and when the stills are running, you can see this. So that's very cool. It's not just,
you can smell it, you can see it, you see the distillers doing their work. You're right in the heart of what it is that we do. And I think one of the key things that we've tried to do really all along the way is take very significant care in every step that we take along the production process. So I think all of the grain that we have is Irish. It's malted in Ireland. It comes from a region, and you may have a slide there, Mareike, where you may have the map of Ireland, and we might be able to share that with everybody.
I try it. I try to share it. Yeah, I can do that. Can you see it?
There we go.
This is
so if there might be, it might be, go down a slide.
Yeah, I can do. Yeah.
So for everybody there, so you can see our logo, which is the right up on kind of, you can see the region of Connacht, and we're up on the top portion of that region. But the really interesting thing for us.
Sorry.
Yeah, sure. So if you scroll down a little bit more.
Yeah.
So all of our grain comes from down in the bottom right-hand corner. So all from an area, it's County Wexford, and it's an area called Hookhead. And you can see a picture of actually all of the farmers in the bottom left-hand side that provide the grain to us that we distill every day.
I do it a bit bigger, then you can see the picture better. Oh, sorry.
There we go. So it's a little bit interesting for us because, you know, terroir is something that's become a very big word in the whiskey world recently, right?
Yeah.
So and we won't name who the person who's been advocating that particular process, but I think he's very well known.
Yeah.
But all of our barley comes from that Hookhead Peninsula down in that particular region, and it is it's really amazing for us because the barley, when it's growing, and it's a spring barley, it's a laureate grain barley, but over the course of its growth, it starts off green and it turns white because of the climate that's down there, and the air is a little bit salty, and the soil is a little bit sandy, and all of those sort of things. But it goes from green to white and back to green again. So this is a very, very cool feature of the barley that we use every day in our distillation process. So without mentioning the word terroir, you kind of have a very specific region creating a very specific grain that we malt to a very specific standard. We don't malt it to distiller's malt standard. We like a little bit more moisture in it. So the moisture content in our grain is 4.8% rather than distiller's malt standard being 4.5%. And ultimately, Mareike, that's all for flavor. That's absolutely all for flavor. If there's a little bit more moisture and it's not as dry and it's not as brittle, then we absolutely feel that the moisture content in there is going to give us just a little more complexity in the spirit that we're looking to create. So what we do here is, and I'm kind of rambling on a little bit, but what I wanted to try and give a sense of is we don't make a lot of whiskey every year. We're very specific in terms of the grain and where it comes from. We're very specific in terms of how it's malted, and it's malted to a standard that we feel gives it just some extra flavor. When we bring it up to the distillery, we obviously mill it on site, we brew it on site, we ferment it on site, and what we don't do is, so you'll find that a lot of the fermentation cycles are about 3 days in duration, 3 to 4 days in duration. We don't rush it. We let our fermentation cycle take 7 days. And what happens is that the interaction between the yeast and the wort itself gives it time to really bottom out, and we feel that we get the best of the best of the liquid and the interaction between the yeast and the wort. But we also don't allow, we temperature control the fermentation, and ultimately the reason for that is that if we feel if the fermentation cycle goes too hard and too high too fast, there's negative flavors start to generate out of all of that. So we don't allow that to happen. So we curb our fermentation cycles at 27 degrees. So the next stage is obviously distillation, and we distill it through our wash still, our intermediate still, and our spirit still.
Maybe we can show that. I think on the first page, here you can see the stills.
I see Tina saying that I think one farm on Hookhead is in Waterford. She could well be right there. I'm not 100% sure, because the Nore, the Shore, and the Barrow, 3 rivers all converge into that area. So she could well be right. So we'll have to do a bit of research on that.
Maybe, yeah. You should have a look.
We should have a look. Yeah. Maybe Ella can check that for us while we're chatting.
Yes. So about what you were mentioning, you have the special grain, and then of course the yeast.
Yes.
And when we are talking about all those specials, and do you also use a special yeast, or the yeast you're using for whiskey making?
Yeah, we use a whiskey making yeast, but we're looking to literally capture and develop our own yeast. So that it is literally, it's Mayo yeast. So that's the next stage of our development. The challenge with that is culturing yeast is very complicated, and in order to be able to create a significant amount of it, it takes a long time. So in the meantime, so that is a future development process for us. Now it's interesting because there's a local brewer that's based in County Sligo that have cultured their own yeast. So I'm trying to tease him a little bit and say, could I distill, using your yeast, and let's see what happens. So we're looking at that as kind of the next stage of our development. It's just not something that we can influence very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So you can see our three stills there. We have the wash still is on the left. You have the intermediate still in the middle, and then you have our spirit still on the right hand side. And you can obviously see the change in the funnel geometry. And obviously that's to affect reflux, and it's to be able to influence flavor through the distillation process. The angle on our line arms is just a little bit off spec as well, so that there's a little bit of a change in terms of the condensation from vapor into a liquid again. So we've taken some decisions in that regard, and ultimately how the cuts that we would create and the management of the foreshots on the feints, we kind of do that a little bit different as well, just to try and kind of keep that care and attention and that craft unique to us ultimately. So on top of that, all of our barrels, as you know, are stored, because you have two here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of our barrels are stored here in our own warehouse at the distillery. So again, we're 1 kilometer from the sea, so we have that whole maritime climate going on in terms of an influencer with our barrels that are maturing. So we kind of do things our own way, to our own style, and each and every decision that we've made has been, we put a lot of thought into it. We've done a lot of kind of development work in it to make sure that we're making smart decisions, and we think as a result, we have a pretty special, we've two special whiskies. We have a double distilled whiskey and we have a triple distilled whiskey. The double distilled whiskey, obviously, Scottish people and Americans would be, and the Japanese would be very familiar with the double distilled style, and there's a little bit more complexity, a little bit more robustness to it. There's a little bit more earthy side of things to that distillate. But then we have a triple distilled, and as you know, it's a little bit lighter, it's a little bit fruitier, it has the same core DNA, and where our thought process is that the double distilled, it's all about the distillate, but the triple distilled is all about the cask management.
Yeah.
And so that we're going to have so we're doing lots of really cool things with casks on our triple distilled whiskey, and we're really, really excited by some of those things. So our double distilled whiskey, which is all single malt, will be released the end of October, the start of November. So we're really excited by that. And that'll be a 4.5-year-old Irish whiskey. It's currently aging in the most gorgeous Oloroso sherry butts from the Fernando de Castilla bodega in just outside of Cadiz, and they're particularly special barrels. They have a fantastic antique Oloroso that is just an annual award winner as a best producer in Spain, and it really is complementing our double distilled at the moment. So that's still finishing. It needs about another 4 weeks, and then so we have the pleasure of tasting that regularly, and we're really enjoying it. So I even have so that little sample was pulled this morning. So we just had a little nibble of that this morning, which is really exciting.
Very cool.
So it's a gorgeous distillate.
That's fine. So I have one comment. Someone is asking me for autogram, so very nice. I can give it to you on one of the next bottles.
Okay.
And then, so Tina was saying, one farm from Pocket works with the Waterford distillery. She's not sure about the county borders. So maybe
I might have to change my story.
Yeah, maybe. And then here's Ella already answered, but I would like to have also the people on YouTube having an answer. Fabio said, hello from Switzerland. You're very close to the area of Connemara. Do we have to expect peated whiskey of your distillery?
Well, I'm looking at it. just, but what I'm looking at is more using a peated barrel rather than a peated mash bill, to be honest. So that we can, we can introduce a very light peated whiskey rather than a very heavy peated whiskey style. So I think we'll use the cask to be able to create that influence rather than going down a very peated mash bill route. Now, what we did do is that we had some not peated, but we smoked some of our barley. So we sent it over and we had it smoked with cherry wood. So there's a little innovation that's in the back there that we're watching for. But I think what we want to do is we want to explore all sorts of flavors and styles and see where the journey brings us to, and ultimately, we can have a bit of fun along the way. So I don't see us having a peated whiskey with a mash bill, but I see us probably having a peated style whiskey from an ex-peated cask, and let's see what happens with that.
Yeah, very good.
But Fabio is right. Connemara is only down the road. It's about an hour and a half, so we're not very far away. It's just a shame that Connemara whiskey is distilled in County Louth on the other side of the country.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, and Tina is saying, I hope your first whiskey is coming to Mareike's Irish Whiskey Weekend.
We'll have to see what the timing is like, but don't worry, we'll have Connacht single malt making its way to Germany as soon as possible.
Yes, of course. So when we are talking about the whiskeys, maybe you saw that I have 3 of your whiskeys staying here.
Yeah, I have them all here too.
Yeah, very good. So maybe we could start talking a bit about Ballyhoo whiskey.
Right. So Ballyhoo, this is our what the whole purpose for Ballyhoo for us is to bring people on a journey. So we wanted to give people, the notion that there's an alternative to Jameson, and there's an alternative to some of the kind of the stock Irish whiskies. So this is a single grain, and I think single grain whiskies are a lovely introduction to people that haven't really got into whiskey, in a very big way. So you can start off. It's a real easy drinker. Yeah. It's a real easy drinker. Yeah. So what we do is we take the grain whiskey and we finish it in tawny port barrels that come from obviously the Douro region in Portugal. And what we do is we it's we have to be very careful because the single grain is a really, really light distillate. Mm-hmm. So if we leave it in the port barrels for too long, it just becomes it's almost like a whiskey port rather than a port finished whiskey. So what we do is we manage that. We have we put that whiskey into the barrels for about 6 weeks. And what happens then is you start to really see the flavors and the color start to come through. Mm. And I suppose, and you'll have known this, Mareike, the first whiskey that we did was we kind of finished half of it in port and half of it we retained the bourbon. But what we've done now is we've kind of enhanced that flavor and the color by finishing it all in port. So this one here is just, that's like for me, that's Friday night Netflix stuff at home, just taking it nice and easy. It's the end of the week and it's just really, really pleasant. So we like this one as that one that brings you on the Irish whiskey journey. You develop the palate, you kind of understand what it's all about, and then you can step into something that might be just, a little bit more complex, a little bit more robust, have a little bit more about it. So it's really good. So what does it taste like? I won't actually taste, but I'll nose. Yeah. So to me, this one, you definitely get hints of, you're going to get classic vanilla in there, which is you've got bourbon going on there. So you get plum, you get a little bit of raisin in there, you get some dried fruits. Even there's almost like apricot and a little bit of fig in there, isn't there? There's even some dried spices that you would have, like almost a little element of clove. So I think, for a really simple, easy drinker, it's a very pleasant and pleasurable, whiskey to have just, the end of a week when you're tired and your work is done. You don't have to get up early on Saturday morning. So this one is a super whiskey.
This is very good for that. But also this summer, I tried some whiskey drinks. And this one turns out very well for cocktails.
Excellent.
I tried it with different lemonades, and we have a very special elderberries lemonade here in Germany. And compared with that, it's so nice. So it's also very good for having a long drink. Yeah.
Perfect.
This also for Friday night.
That's good, and it's nice that the whiskey has a little bit of versatility, isn't it? That it's just not, oh yeah, we'll put a little bit of ginger ale in there, or like my cousin texts me and he says, yeah, he puts Coca-Cola in it, and I'm nearly shocked. But but you're not going to tell somebody how to drink their whiskey, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has to enjoy it their way. So it's very versatile. So it's a really good easy drinker for the end of the week, and it comes at a good price point as well. So I think it represents good value also.
Yeah, it's about 35 euros here in Germany. So
yeah, it's about the same here also.
Yeah, so it's very cool.
It allows somebody to kind of come out of a little bit more crafty without going into kind of the premium whiskey range. So and that's ultimately its purpose.
Yeah.
So do we have any Ballyhoo fans in the audience?
Yeah, we have one comment here from Bastian. According your new whiskey release, that he says it's very cool having Irish whiskey with local roots and not the big four distilleries. So he's looking forward. Cool. That's very good. And then we have one more question. I think it's about the Amarone cask. We will try then. As I have Italian roots, I was impressed about your choice of the Amarone finish, but what makes Amarone cask interesting for the finish? A nice whiskey. It's getting a really nice whiskey.
Well, you do, and the question is, why did we try Amarone?
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's one of my favorite wines. So this is where you do a little bit of blending and you start to mess around a little bit. And we just felt for a younger whiskey that the Amarone would just kind of mellow it out. It would soften it. It would take a little bit of the edge off it. It would, the color on it is magnificent. Yeah. So it gives that kind of ruby richness, doesn't it? And I suppose it has a smooth body as a result. It's just it has good legs. It has good warmth. It's got great fruity berry notes off it, and the Amarone is just a solid, bold wine, and they're hugely complementary. So this is, and I'm sure Ella will say the same, this is our little baby right now. And ultimately, the most disappointing part of it is that we only made 1,500 bottles of this at the first go, and I think you probably have most of what's left, Mareike.
Yeah,
because pretty much everything else is gone at this point in time. So
and I'm happy that I got that because it's such good whiskey. I really like it. It's so fruity, but as you say, you have the wine notes, and when you smell it, you would never say that's just a 5-year-old whiskey.
Agreed. Yeah, and I've had so many people come to me and say, "Wow, you mean that's only a 5-year-old whiskey?" So it feels like closer to a 10 or a 12 because it's just been beautifully mellowed out. So that the youth of the single malt is removed, and it's fantastic. So the one thing that we said to ourselves is we're going to do this again. So the only problem is that we had the whiskey in for about 14 months, I think just short of 14 months. So the problem is, the one thing when you're making whiskey is you just can't accelerate time. You just have to wait and you have to be patient, but we know what we're going to get, right? So this is fantastic. And just the nose to smell is it's fantastic on every level. We love this one. So we're sorry to wave this one goodbye soon.
Yeah. So Tina is saying she really loves the Ballyhoo. It's easy to drink.
Really easy to drink, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and Fabio is saying a marriage between Italy and Ireland. I love that. So,
Yeah,
yeah. So the bottle
agreed.
is 45 euros here in Germany, and the ABV is also 45%.
Yeah, it's 45%. And what we wanted to do is typically we brought the ABV up just a little bit so that
Yeah,
we would make it more interesting. We wanted to make sure that you were really getting, the base of the whiskey coming through, complemented by all of the notes that come with the Amarone. So we just felt that 45% was the real sweet spot for this.
yeah, yeah. So it's an amazing whiskey, and I know it's about 2 years ago, I think we were at the Connacht Distillery, and there we tried already the Amarone cask, I think so, and also the Masala cask, and
Yeah.
both were great whiskeys at that point. So I'm really looking forward that Masala might get also his way to Germany, and we have the Amarone now. So
Well, it's funny, and we'll come to it a little bit later. So
yeah.
so there's the I just pulled this off the bottling line today. You can see it hasn't even been labeled yet, but it's getting there. So you can see the color on that. It's a real gold amber color, and the flavor profile on it is, it kind of has cinnamon, a little bit of dark chocolate, a little bit of nutmeg and orange, and it's a really, really good whiskey. And same as we've gone for 45% on this one also, because we think that's just right in the sweet spot. So that's coming. So we'll definitely have an allocation for Germany if you guys want it.
Yeah, we definitely want it. Yes, I can say it here now. Yeah, because we really like it. We also like, when we are just talking about your whiskeys, I have here the Spade Bushel double barrel, the 12-year-old. This is also a very nice whiskey. When I think about this whiskey, my first thoughts are ripe apricots. So really orange, fresh apricots. That's always coming into my mind when I hear about that whiskey.
Well, it's funny. We've kind of tinkered with Amarone, we've tinkered with Marsala, we've poured on the ballyhoo, we have rum, we have sauterne, we have other stuff that's going on in the background, and we said, you know what, that's just a classic single malt. So let's not mess with it. It's really good on its own. So let's take its core attributes, which is a bourbon finish, freshen it up, put it into a new barrel for, I think it's in there for 2 years, and you get your apricots, you get your butterscotch, and you get a little bit of fudge in there and all sorts of stuff. So that was when we just thought, that's just a classic single malt. Leave it alone. Just leave it alone. Just add to it, but leave it alone. So that one, I think it's about 42.3%, and when we brought that just down a little so that you get the toffee and the fudge and the butterscotch and the apricot and all those sort of things, and that comes to the fore a little bit. So that one here, I have this one. The nose is very subtle, isn't it? It's like while it's a 12-year-old whiskey, the nose is very delicate. It doesn't have that boldness that the Amarone has. It's just a classic single malt.
Yeah.
So I hope that fly didn't come out of that glass.
Yeah, no, it was just in the air here, so that's fine. Yeah, I have a really special relation to this whiskey because it's a year ago or something like that. I got that whiskey and I was like, okay, maybe I should do a live tasting on Facebook. So this was not really professional, but it was my first one with that whiskey.
Good.
I haven't tried it before. It was the first time to try it live on Facebook, and I was like, that's such a good whiskey. I can't do that when I don't like a whiskey. So it was really good. So this is my special whiskey for Facebook.
And it's funny, like you would have got, I think you took our first release, which was our 10-year-old cask strength, right?
Yeah.
So this comes from the same batch. And what we did was, so when that came out in 2017 in and around. So what we did was we sent some and bottled it as a cask strength, and then we put others back into back into the fresh barrels. So we knew that. So the cask strength was a particularly fine whiskey in its own right. So this is just it in a new form, just presented in a slightly different way.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the 10-year-old was also really good, and the small bottles.
Small bottle, very handy.
Yeah, really
very
nice.
handy. So that was very successful for us in duty frees and travel retail, because it was just easy to put in your handbag or in your backpack or something.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, so because we were talking about the masala cask, so Tina, I'm looking forward to the masala cask. I love December from Belfast Whiskey Week.
Yeah, it absolutely got rave reviews from the guys in that participated in Belfast Whiskey Week, to the point where, we were, we liked the whiskey, but the feedback really got us all buzzing on the whole thing. So, maybe we're just sometimes, you know what you have and you like it, but to get that really positive feedback, so we're trying to accelerate that a little bit. And it's a good whiskey. And let's see what happens with that. Let's enjoy that journey.
Yeah, really cool. Yeah, so I think they were coming. Ella also said masala got great response. Yeah, and Thomas also tried it. So masala cask is awesome. So really good. Yeah, I can tell you it's really good. I just tried it in the distillery 2 years ago. But it was really good at that time. So I'm sure it will be good also now.
Oh, it's fantastic. We're really and it again, the Marsala is it almost brings in kind of mandarins and clementine and it's just a completely different flavor profile. But again, it's very subtle, it's delicious, it's got great body and great legs, and it's just warming, and it's a super whiskey. And it's a 14-year-old whiskey now. So again, that notion of bringing the distillate on the journey and affecting it into something that it wasn't what it was when we got it first. It wasn't this, and we love the notion of trying to change it and add something and add a little bit of craft to the whole thing.
Yeah, really cool. That's really good. So I know when I was visiting your distillery, we were also talking about gin, and you were telling me about your gin production, and I was very impressed about that, because you don't have a gin still.
No, we don't.
And you're using your pot stills for distilling the gin. So this was very impressive, because it's lots of work. So maybe you can tell the people a bit how you're distilling your gin.
Yeah, so the gin is definitely not, from a gin still as everybody would know it. So our gin is a pot distilled gin, obviously. And if you can show the picture behind us, the folks that are that are watching will see it. It's the still on the right.
I can show the from the presentation. I can show it.
Okay, perfect.
I can show it better.
So there we go. So you can see that the bottom of the funnel has a big bulb on it, and that's really just to affect reflux. The more contact that we get with the copper on the funnel, then the more flavorsome that the distillates happen to be. So we distill everything on that the spirit still. It has a capacity of about 1,400 liters, and there's many different styles of gin distillation. And we think that the one, so you can basically, it's called a one-shot distillation process. So what we do is we charge the still with alcohol and deionized water, and then we take our 8 botanicals, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, but our 8 botanicals are, so we have so juniper obviously is core to our gin. Interestingly enough, we chose not to use coriander. So we have no coriander in our gin recipe, which is definitely unusual. And then we kind of focus on 3 core taste attributes. So we have citrus in there. So the citrus is grapefruit and lemon. So it's really complementary. So if you're having it in a cocktail, anything that's citrusy brings that out. We focused also on introducing berries into it. So we have hawthorn, we have elderberry, we have rosehip in there as kind of the core berry complement. And then we bring in a little bit of root with angelica root and a small bit of spice with grains of paradise, and blend that all together. So what we do is we take all of those botanicals in the various amounts that we've measured out to be our recipe. And we literally put all of those particular botanicals into the still and let it float around. So we charge the still, let's say we charge the still tonight. We would introduce all of the botanicals into it tonight. We would let that just seep and brew and everything over, during the night. And then in the morning, we'll distill it out. So we get it's only about 450 liters of a heart's cut, because we have to distill it like whiskey. So we get a heart's cut. That's about 450 liters. So we don't generate, volumes and volumes and volumes of gin like you would in a gin still or a continuous still, or even in a compounded process where you kind of make like a syrup and then you add in grain neutral spirit and dilute it down. We don't do any of that stuff. So this is a genuine pot distilled, one shot gin. And what we do once the distillation is done, we kind of let it sit there for a minimum of 10 days. So all the oils start to develop together, that the flavor starts to just mellow and the distillate has a chance to kind of settle and develop. A lot of people don't do that. They just put it straight into a bottle, and onto a shelf. We like to take a little bit more care in what it is that we do on it. So it's a premium gin. So it's so we're very proud of the gin. It takes a lot of care and attention. The bottle, is something where, it's become, and we've gone through different times, Mareike, since you saw the first Concolin. So we had designers help us along the way, and funnily enough, this one is something.
Here is the older bottle.
Yeah, so you have the old one and I have the new one.
Yeah.
So the team ourselves, we developed the design for that internal, just within us, and we're not designers or anything like that, but we just felt it needed to. It was a better reflection of, our surroundings, the water, the sea is adjacent to us, and all of that sort of stuff. So different style to what you have, slightly lower ABV. Your ABV is about 47%. And we've brought this down to 42.3. I think some people were saying to them that they got hangovers in the morning, so we wanted to try and protect them a little bit from that front. So, but it's a really premium gin. And
I like the gin because it tastes like a gin. Yeah. Not berries, not citrus. It's some herbal notes, and I like it. It's different from other gins, and I really like the production process you're doing, because this is something really special. It's very cool.
And like, go ahead.
Maybe also you can explain the name a bit about Concolin, because I think that's a very good story behind the name.
Well, there are two lakes so between my house and the distillery, there are two lakes that I have to drive by. One is Loch Conn and the other is Loch Cullen. So what we've done is, and ultimately the water for the distillery comes from those particular lakes. So we just merged the two names together to create Concolin. So it really is, it kind of pays a homage to the area that we're from and where we live. And there's a little bit of history there where they were the Conn and Cullen were two hounds of a very famous, or a kind of a mythological warrior, Irish Celtic warrior way back, when history began. And so there's kind of a little bit of that in the whole story for us. So it's really a super gin. We're dead proud of it. It goes really, really well. And we're often asked, well, how do you present it? Or if you're going to, what do you do with it? Or how would you drink it? And to me, it's a classic, it's great to go out and have a mixologist do something really sexy, to your gin, but we don't have all that stuff at home, right?
Yeah.
So you know, again, like a Friday night, if it's not ballyhoo, then it's a simple gin. It has a premium tonic. You can go down the strawberry raspberry route. You can go down kind of like a little bit of lime with a hint of mint, or the type of stuff that you have just in your drinks cabinet.
Yeah.
And it's a perfectly fine gin. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to go out and you want to challenge your bartender, you can ask him for something a little bit more sophisticated, where you could put a little bit of lemon juice, apple juice, a little bit of rosemary, a little bit of sugar syrup in there, maybe some, you know, some mightn't be a kind of like a tonic, it might be some sort of a flavored soda water. So you have all sorts of stuff. It's really, really versatile, because you can bring out the citrus or you can bring out the berry, and it is completely complementary and all of that. And if you're just not bothered, it's classic in a martini. Just a gin with a hint of dry vermouth, and it's just perfect. Shaken, not stirred, obviously.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, it's a very good gin you can have a tonic with, and it's not complicated to do the tonic, the gin tonic, because some gins are really not working with this or that tonic. So this gin is just take an Indian tonic and you can't do anything wrong. So that's right.
And you can even go down like the Mediterranean tonics from Fever Tree, or you can, you know, it really is, it's very versatile. So the only thing that you want to do is, because we've created it where it's juniper forward, so you're definitely getting that gin effect. It's not lost. It's not overpowered by the sweetness and the sugariness of some of those premium tonics. So you know you're having a gin and tonic rather than a flavored tonic. You know, the gin stands up on its own, and you know, that was one of the things that we absolutely wanted to make sure that it just wasn't lost.
Yeah.
So it's a right good gin. So we're very proud of that.
Yeah, it's a very cool product range Connacht has at the moment. So lots of different styles, nothing which is boring. So lots of good bottlings, and I think the next big thing will be your first own whiskey, and this is something lots of people are looking for.
Yeah. And that's coming soon. So the first one, like I said at the outset, so we're going to release our double distilled first, and really, you know, we're taking two very different paths with our distillate. So our double distilled it's maturing now. It's finishing in Oloroso casks, really top end Oloroso casks that we searched high up and low down for something that was really going to complement and show our whiskey in its best light. So the double distill is coming out soon, and that will be, you know, that's all about the distillate with the sherry finish, just to complement it. So this particular guy, ultimately, if I were to kind of say, well, what are its core attributes? It's kind of, I suppose, within it, it has honey, it has roasted almonds. Now, actually, you know what you might do, if you pop into the flavor into the presentation deck. We created a little kind of flavor wheel to give a sense of where it's at. Now, I'm sure Tina and Thomas are going to be sick of me talking about this stuff because they've heard it so many times. But
I do it. Just give me a second. I have to share the screen. Here it is.
So there we go. So how that flavor wheel works is that if you take the logo in the center.
Sorry.
But if you take the logo in the center, ultimately, as we step out, the flavors become more dominant the further away that we get from the center. So there's a little bit of salt and pepper in there in the flavor profile, and that to us is really its core out of the grain. Our barley coming from Hookhead, it's inherent in its DNA, and it's also inherent in terms of the where our aging warehouse is located. And then on top of that, we get a little bit of biscuit and apples. There's a little bit of honey in there. So those are the kind of the core, what I would call the core grain type attributes. We obviously have it in in bourbon for a period of, it's just over 3 years, and that gives you the vanilla, the toffee, the caramel, and then a little bit of oak, and then the Oloroso gives you the dried fruits and a little bit of walnut. So it has a very rounded, balanced mix between the grain attributes, the bourbon attributes, and then the finishing off of the dry fruits that come out of the Oloroso. So it's a lovely, lovely balanced whiskey. And what it does is it activates the front of your tongue, the middle of you and the back of your palate, and then you get lovely warmth at the end of it. So so we're not going to share with anybody, and we're going to keep it all for ourselves.
No, you have to share it. You can't drink everything by yourself.
So that's the double distilled. So then the triple distilled, as I said, so that's going to come out in 2021. And we have a few tricks up our sleeve with that one. We're actually going to finish this. The first release is being finished in rum. So it's not Jamaican rum. It is from Martinique. It's not made from molasses. It's from sugarcane. And we've searched. And if you want to go back into the presentation deck for one sec, you'll see a map of the world somewhere.
Here.
So you can see, yeah. So even though we're a young distillery, we are really reaching out far to try and explore and find casks that are really bring something and show us in a good light. So you can see in Europe, we have Marsala from Italy, we have Amarone from Northern Italy, we have Sauterne from France, we have Oloroso from Spain, we have port from Portugal, we obviously have bourbon from Kentucky, we have rum from Martinique, and a really cool one that we're looking at also is we have Cabernet Sauvignon coming from Napa Valley in California. And so those particular casks are on their way through the Panama Canal at the moment. And what's really cool about this is that the owner of that vineyard is from County Sligo, which is only an hour away from our distillery. So we're looking at a really cool collaboration there with that vineyard. And they do a magnificent, it's like a 96 point rated Cabernet. So so Ella and I have literally been lucky enough to have this wine, and it's really become our favorite Californian wine. So and again, we don't want to share that with anybody either. But that's a really great story for us,
Yeah, but you mentioned the wrong thing, because Thomas is always like rum cask.
Yeah, we have it, Thomas. Yeah. So 2021, there will be a triple distilled, rum finished Connacht single malt for you.
Yes, Tina also says it's interesting casks from all over the world. So yeah, really cool.
Yeah. And we're going to continue to explore to see if there are other things where we can reach into. I'd love to go into Asia and see if there's stuff that we could kind of locate out. Everybody has spoken about Mizunara casks. I mean, they're very porous, they're very complicated, it's very far away.
Yeah.
But, there's places to go that would potentially be fantastic, and they would create great expressions. And that's the next part of our journey, is as a new distillery, you want to make sure you have a really good core distillate. And then it's your cask management program is now going to be the final cog in the wheel. And we're working hard on that.
Yeah, that's really good. I think this is something which makes, in general, Irish whiskey at the moment very interesting, that there are lots of cask experiments, because all over the years you just got bourbon casks, maybe a sherry port cask. That was it.
That was it. Yeah. And there's lots of really, but I think, the world is becoming a smaller place. And I think we're becoming all a little bit more, product availability is something that we've never had as much choice. And whether that's just with fortified wines, or whether it happens to be, something like a Barolo or an Amarone, or, all of these things we've never had so much choice before. And we're developing, our palates and our taste buds are developing, and we kind of know what we like now. So we're trying to say, okay, well, let's go and bring that a step forward and start to bring these sort of finishes into our style of whiskey. May not be for everybody, but it's kind of where it's what we like and where we want to go.
Yeah, That's very good. Yeah, Tina says, I think sherry wood is also interesting in chestnut.
Yeah, chestnut in particular.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Method and Madness did a delicious chestnut finished at one stage. So yeah, there's all sorts of places to go. There's, we haven't even looked at kind of some virgin oak yet. And again, there's fantastic tannins off the virgin oak that give great color and great flavor. So, we haven't even looked at that yet. We did that for our cask aged gin, which was fantastic. I don't know if you got that to Germany, but the cask aged gin was delicious.
Yeah, we had the cask aged gin. Yeah, that was really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ella says some cask ideas from Germany. This is something not easy. We have good wines, so maybe you can get some wine casks, but it's in Germany you do not have so many opportunities. I had a funny idea. I was thinking about doing some apple wine because we are here a very big apple region.
Okay.
And putting it into a cask, leave it there for some weeks, the apple wine, and then putting in some whiskey. But I'm afraid that the apple wine won't last lots of weeks into a cask because the ABV is too low.
Okay.
So, I don't know. It's very difficult in Germany to get very interesting casks. The wine, or beer casks maybe. I think beer casks is very interesting.
Beer casks are becoming very popular. A lot of people are looking at various styles of stout. We did a collaboration with the local brewery, and we created a brown ale. So we had our whiskey, we took it out of the casks, we sent the cask over to the brewer filled them with beer, and then we took them back, and then we refilled them with whiskey. So we're going to see where that goes. But it's going to be a while before that comes out. And this is a really interesting thing that we get to do. So we're like chefs in a kitchen at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And we're just teasing and playing and trying to figure out, well, what works and what doesn't work. And that's kind of the best part of it. And I'm almost thinking that if you take poaching, we're allowed to take, if you take something like apple wine, we're allowed to take poaching, and we're allowed to put it into a cask for about 4 to 6 weeks. There's a limit for it. And that might actually be a perfect timeline for the apple wine, so that might be a little avenue to play out with, without getting into trouble with people for doing the wrong things with casks and poaching. But that's the thing, is just to look at it in a different way and say, hey, is there a fit? So we like those ideas a lot.
Yeah, I think everybody will get more creative in what can we do with casks, and also why not putting poaching into a whiskey cask and then putting in whiskey again and having a whiskey with a poaching finish or style. Might be very interesting.
And I think that's the one thing that, as craft producers, the big guys, are they like to make millions of liters of alcohol every day, and the notion of doing very small batch limited releases is not really, something that they like to or can do easily. So I think that's always going to be the domain of the artisanal or the craft producer. And I think the consumer likes the choice. Then they like to have a little bit of an alternative. They like to do something, that's a little bit different. And we're all becoming a little bit more, I think we're braver is the word I'm looking for. We're not quite so afraid to just, oh no, I'll only buy Jameson, or I'll only buy Bushmills. Let's try something else. As long as, the quality is good and the price is fair, then I think, that's always going to be successful.
Yeah, that's right, because you need the diversity in the Irish whiskey. No longer just the big players. That's getting boring.
But we have to applaud the big guys as well, is that they've created the market for small guys like, myself and Ella, that, we can come to work every day knowing that the efforts of Jameson is creating the opportunity for Connacht and other small companies.
Yeah, That's right. Yeah. But yeah, of course, Jameson, Bushmills, all those big things did the work before, did the market. But now, as you said, the smaller ones have the opportunity to come to the market and to play with cask and do lots of different interesting things.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. And it's a big world out there. And what you find is, I lived in Asia for a long period of time. There, what works for us in Europe, they have a completely different palate. So they don't want sweet. They like something that's a bit more what I would call savory. So, you can be brave knowing that there are, different markets with different flavor profiles, and there's a place for everything. Africa is untouched, but there's huge opportunity there. There's huge opportunity in South America.
Yeah.
So yeah, just be brave.
Yeah, very good. So I think we had been talking about the distillery. We have been talking about your product. So I think we covered nearly everything from the Connacht Distillery. So
yeah, I think we've kind of given a sense of where we came from, what we do, what we're intending to do, and we're definitely, innovation is where we want to play. So we don't ever want to be doing the same thing all of the time. So always keep an eye out for those things. So we'll have loads of different whiskies and loads of different styles. We'll continue with our white spirits. So our gin is important. We have other kind of variations of that. We're looking at a kind of a ruby gin that is finished in a wine cask. So that's going to be a little bit cool. We're going to, we're working on slow gins now. Everybody's done slow gins, but we're trying to look at that a little. We're even looking at a gooseberry liqueur. So we're working on that also. So yeah, so just watch this space, Mareike.
Yeah, you're doing lots of special, interesting things. Very good.
Yeah, we get to bring them home and try them from time to time too, which is great.
Yes, I think so. That's the nice side of the work.
The best part, yeah.
Yeah. So Tina just says maybe some advertisement for the thing in November. Yes, maybe I should tell the people a bit about the Irish Whiskey Weekend, where you will be also part within. So we will have 2 days full of Irish whiskey. 12 distilleries and whiskey bonders will show their products. And I'm very happy that all of those will be taking part. And I think we will have a very cool weekend. We will have Irish music. We will have 4 singers singing Irish songs, and this will be very cool. So I'm really looking forward for it, and it's a lot of work, lots of planning, but I'm going ahead. And the next thing will be that you and Ella will receive an email. We will have to talk about what we will add to the tasting kit.
Sure.
Yeah. So Ella says you are looking forward to the festival. Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah, I think we were saying at the beginning, it's very hard to go anywhere and do anything. So, it's great to participate in festivals like this. It's the only chance we have to go and talk to people and have a little bit of fun and catch up and tell our story.
Yeah, that's right. That's the thing we are doing this year, and hopefully next year there will be more real life events where we can meet the people.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. So thank you very much for taking your time, David.
No bother, I enjoyed it.
It was fun. And yes, so all the products are available in Germany, and we will be in touch and getting the masala cask and the first Connacht whiskey. So there will be lots of news from Connacht till the end of the year, and I think we will meet again for a live stream here. So
definitely.
Yeah. So thank you very much, and have a nice evening, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.